ReleaseWire helps businesses connect with interested journalists and bloggers. Check out the link in the description to save 25% on your first press release.
Admiral, radar shows that we have liberals approaching at 3 o'clock, and libertarians at 9 o'clock, and conservatives at 6 o'clock. They're coming from every angle, every viewpoint. Oh, it's Political Radar with your hosts, Rhonda and Elliot.
Hey, all you political junkies, welcome to Political Radar, the best 30 minutes of unscripted and uncensored political talk you will hear all day long. And we have episode 41, some pretty big hitters in the studio today. No? Maybe? Oh, yeah. We have Russ Feingold and Mark Becker with us. Thanks for coming in. We know you're busy, and we really appreciate the time you're giving us today.
Mm-hmm. Great to be on the show. Thank you for inviting me more than once.
Yeah, I know. I kind of stalked you on this, but so glad you're here.
We had a public admission of stalking.
I'm good. I'll admit it. I'm okay with it, whatever it takes.
Lock, stock, and bagel.
Lock, stock, and bagel. Great little coffee shop / diner in Green Bay, Wisconsin. You had an event today that was really interesting. I want to talk about that at the Chamber. Tell us about that.
Well, I, with the help of the Chamber, was able to host a roundtable where we talked about the issue of infrastructure in the state and in the country, which you'd think would not necessarily be a hot topic, but guess what? It's a huge topic. People are extremely concerned about the crumbling of this country and this state, whether it's roads or whether it's bridges or water infrastructure, railroads, ports, and the internet. Getting a fast speed or high speed internet is a huge issue for up to 1 million people in this state. So we had, State Senator Hansen, Representative Genrich, and we were lucky to have some county board members, including Mark, who was kind enough to say, look, this isn't about political parties. This is about how we can work together to try to improve everybody's life by having a better transportation and transit systems. So I thought it was very upbeat and made me feel great, and maybe Mark wants to comment on it.
Yeah, it was, I think we talked about the fact that this is not a political party discussion. It goes beyond Republican, it goes beyond Democrat. This is something that, it's a discussion that centers around improving the lives of people in Brown County. And I want to be part of that discussion, and it shows a lot of leadership that you would ask me to help host the event, and I greatly appreciate that. I was really encouraged by the discussion that we had. Like you said, this is a serious issue, and it's going to take more than just the regular old partisanship that we've had over the last many years, and it's going to take real leadership to say, hey, we're going to leave our political parties at the door. We're going to come in. We're going to talk about these things. And it's great. I really was honored to be part of that.
What a great idea. Work together, right?
Right.
Yeah, Mark, is not exactly a card-carrying Democrat. He's a former chairman of the Republican Party.
We're actually going to confiscate his wallet on the way out. There's been rumors.
So that shows that he's committed to that. And, obviously I'm a Democrat, and that seemed completely irrelevant to the conversation.
Of course it is, because Democrats and Republicans, we all need the tools to progress in life and to get jobs, to be able to function in today's world. This is not a party thing at all.
No, we met for coffee about a month ago, and I left the meeting really taken back because, we started the meeting talking about not areas that we disagree, but we talked about areas that we do agree, and it's a lot. We're not going to agree on everything, but what's nice is the fact that we can come together, have a very serious discussion, and get things done. I know as an elected official, if you are elected, I know I can call you, and I have a friend that is in D.C. that's willing to help the people of Brown County, and that's what matters.
And I think Mark is actually representing a lot of younger people that this is what they're thinking about with politics lately. They want to see progress. They don't want to see people, digging in, entrenched in their party ideals. They want to see things happening. Would you agree?
Well, I noticed before the show started, Mark was pointing out that I might be older than he is, which is a legitimate. But what the neat thing is that what you just said ties to the time when I started in politics. So when I first ran for the state Senate years ago, I started knocking on doors in places like Portage and Baraboo, Wisconsin. And I'd come to the door, and I noticed if I said anything about Democrat or Republican, it's like you turned the switch off. They didn't want to hear it. But if you talked about your ideas or just listened, everybody felt better. We've had a few years here in the last 5 or 6 years where the politics has gotten away from that. But I think the natural instinct of people is, fine, we understand during election time you got to talk about parties, but they want us to just stop after the election and say, what can you do on a bipartisan basis? Of course, that's what I've always done. People know me best as some John McCain says people think my first name is McCain for McCain Feingold. He loves that joke. He's told it like 8,000 times. But, that's one of my greatest prides is that, I don't think there's too many things people associate necessarily with me, but the fact that they associate my name with bipartisanship, it means the world to me.
You remember when John McCain was running for president and he was the maverick of the Senate? Yeah. Remember that? Bipartisanship shouldn't be a maverick idea.
No, it should be normal.
Yes.
And, when I first came to the Senate, that was much more normal. There's a routine that goes on when a senator is starting to work with a senator from the other party. They're sitting together, and some of their colleagues come up and go, what are you two doing sitting next to each other? And one goes, it's going to destroy my reputation being seen with you, back and forth. But you know what? Even though it sounds like just a sort of a funny conversation, it really was an exciting thing when you'd see people coming together across party lines in the Senate, also in the state Senate when I was there. And I know Mark's doing that on the county board.
So think about what's actually been happening lately. There's not a lot of progress in Wisconsin. We're really, if anything, companies are leaving at a record pace. The job numbers aren't impressive. So really, why wouldn't we try something that's a little more collaborative, right?
Yeah, what I did last year and going to all the counties, and I went to all the counties this year, what I particularly enjoyed this year, we tried to go to an innovative business in almost every county. And we went to Belgioso here. We went down to Appleton Coated and Combined Locks. We were at Offbeat Press in Oshkosh. So many interesting companies. What I found was even though there are serious problems with the politics in the state, fundamentally there's a lot of people, especially younger people, who are exciting new entrepreneurs who just want to see if they can show what they can do. And they don't want politics in the way, but they also want to be able to partner with county boards, with legislators and others to make sure things move in the right direction. A tremendous example is a company called Dealer Fire in Oshkosh. So you know this company?
Yeah, I'm in the auto business. So
of course you would. That's right.
Yep.
So
they're awesome.
It's in an old building on the main drag where the fur industry once was, which was a huge, industry in the 19th century. Well, I went up there, and the young entrepreneur said, I would go up the stairs, and there's 100 people at computer monitors. What are they doing? They're one of the leading developers of websites for car dealers in the world. Now, that never could have happened a few years ago without the internet, and it probably wouldn't have been a young entrepreneur. He's in the car business, Mark is, so he knows that this is something that could not have happened in these areas. So if we could get away from the petty politics, figure out these infrastructure things, encourage this kind of innovation, it's just going to be better for everybody, and it's going to be much more upbeat.
And so how has that idea been received? I mean, you had this event at the chamber, and, was it like a town hall, or did you have questions from the audience? Was it just more of you were just basically talking about what your ideas were?
It was a round table.
It was a round table.
9 or 10 people.
So this on the infrastructure thing?
Yes.
So what's the actual plan? Is this a county plan? Is it a chamber plan? Is it a Russ Feingold plan? What is this?
I think this is just us getting together to.
So this is like the
try to form something.
Okay.
I mean, I do have something called a Badger Innovation Plan.
Okay.
That relates to these things, but I'm always trying to enhance it. I mean, that involves infrastructure. It involves training. It's desperately needed. It involves making sure we export Wisconsin products, not Wisconsin jobs. It involves promoting innovation. But as Mark said, this was an information gathering session that also, as he said better than anybody, was about looking at each other, the chamber, a couple of labor union guys, a couple of legislators, a couple of business people, one of them who said, I'm not a Democrat, and looking at each other and saying, hey, we should be getting to know each other and get used to working together.
Well, I think that's a huge complaint is that, local governments, their control is being taken away. And why would we not collaborate together? so that you could stop having that complaint. I mean, I think that's something that has to happen.
Or just not take the power away in the first place.
Well,
Let it be.
I'm hearing a lot of anxiety from county board people. I just spoke to the Wisconsin Counties Association last week. And some of the moves that are being made both in Madison and Washington would literally take away that control from the county level. And the county is critical. I grew up in a sort of county environment because I grew up in Janesville, and my father was a lawyer, so he was at the courthouse a lot, and my mother was an abstract and title business. So their careers revolved around the courthouse. And I understood that, that was a law enforcement place, it's a human services place. It's a place actually that connects everything up. And when you start gutting the power of the county to bring this all together, I think it's real damaging. And I'm very county-based. I go to all the counties every year. I use that as a way to organize my ability to try to help. So it's good to be with a county board member who understands that.
So on infrastructure, ideally, what would you like to see happen?
Well, on the roads, we've got to have a dedicated funding from the federal government that's paid for, where somebody can look down the road 6 or 7 years and say, all right, that funding is going to be there. I just did a roundtable like this in La Crosse, and the La Crosse County Highway Commissioner said, Russ, 3 or 4 years isn't good enough. We need to be able to go 6 or 7 years. They have not passed a bill yet out there that it's properly paid for that goes far enough. We need funding from the bill, too, for bridges. We've got 15% of the bridges in the state are defective. We need funding for public transit. One of the people at the meeting is very dedicated to hiking or hiking trails and bicycling. A community like this sometimes needs funding for that.
It's one of the goals of Troy Streckenbach is to get an engineering school in UWGB. Well, if you drive Nicolay, which is the only way to get into the school pretty much, there's no biking, there's no sidewalks, so if these young people, who a lot of them don't have cars, they want to get to downtown, they want to get somewhere else, the public transportation isn't very good, the buses. But so their only way to do it would be through bikes and walking trails, and there's nothing out there.
Yeah, and she was just eloquent about this, because what you normally hear, of course, is highways and roads and water infrastructure, rail, ports, which is all very important, but she really added another dimension. That's why it was so great to have a round table where you get all the perspectives on what it makes to make a community.
Some people forget about the fact that, we have a future generation coming on board.
Right.
And that we need to facilitate to what their needs are, their attention span, which is not very big.
I have a granddaughter. I never lose sight of the fact that there's future generations coming.
Thank you.
But it was
wow, really? Well, okay.
It was a great example. So right after we got out of that meeting, Representative Genrich, brought his bike. So he biked there. So that kind of reinforced what we were talking about in terms of bringing some of the focus not just to the cars, but to the alternative methods of transportation that we need to.
I want to tie those two things together: the local control and the infrastructure. So I think that a lot of people would share my concern that having federal investment in roads, and it sounds all great, but then it can be taken away, and maybe it shouldn't be coming federally anyway. It should be coming locally. So, it seems like sort of a yo-yo situation where we're all clamoring for better roads, especially in Green Bay. We have a lot of crumbling infrastructure. And so we're hitting up the county board, we're hitting up the city council, and we're hitting all these people hard. And I feel like we're going to have a bunch of improvement, and it's just going to be too cyclical. And I don't know how we handle that better without this like topsy-turvy type of situation.
I don't think you're ever going to have a situation that will work if it's primarily federally funded. It's going to be a mixture.
Okay.
It's going to be federal. It's going to be state. It's going to be local. There's going to have towns. But when things get so bad as they are now, you need a jump start. You need some guaranteed funding from the federal level so the state can say, okay, we feel comfortable weighing in here, and then people at other levels can do it. It sort of builds into a confidence that ultimately can be good for the local communities and give them more control. It doesn't have to be heavy-handed. But, for example, we were told by the woman from the chamber there that, southern Brown County is the fastest growing place in the state, apparently. She was talking about De Pere. They need some help there. It's getting very serious. So there happens to be a federal grant program that you can apply for that could help them. So instead of a federal mandate, they decide as a community, a local community decides, or a group of community decides, we want to try for this. So it's not a one size fits all.
So
that's the best way.
What concerns me about that is the Pier is a very wealthy area. So if we're taking federal funds from the mouths of children and we're putting it into roads into Pier, that sort of.
Well, I don't think it's. I think, as I understand it, it's a whole series of communities, like Lawrence and Hobart and others, and that there is a congestion issue, and you can help me with this.
Yeah, it's we're talking about
really is serious, and so it isn't about the Pier itself.
Okay,
it's about
highway
that the
infrastructure.
economy's not going to be able to work in that area if we don't do something about it.
The biggest thing that they talked about was, I mean, every single person in this room, if you've driven through the De Pere roundabout, you know what the problem is. So that southern bridge is going to alleviate a lot of that congestion. It's not just for, the wealthy people. It's for the people that are living in the rural areas that come into the city to work, and they have to plan their drive time around that roundabout. Or it's people that are, driving up for school or driving, so that's a big issue. And it's funny, I was at the town of Pittsfield. They had their town board meeting. And before the actual board meeting, they had their planning committee meeting. And that planning committee meeting was all 90% of it talking about what roads we need help with and where we need to put money. And that lasted twice as long as the actual town board meeting. So, I mean, this issue is real, and it doesn't just affect the cities. Yes, of course it does, but it affects everybody.
So I always worry about that, though, because